Hey guys, how are you? Welcome. Whoops. The coloring was looking, it's like I don't have it's either really bright or not bright. How are you guys? Welcome to my channel. I'm super excited. So I want to tell you guys about a new opportunity. So I spent like the better part of my afternoon, which is why you didn't get another stream this afternoon and it's right now, was because I was working on setting up a Discord server, which is a new perk for my members. So a lot of my members have been expressing that they wanted a chance to communicate with the community, but they didn't have outside of just the chats here so that they could get updates on stories I'm working on, get notifications for when I go live, to talk with other people and get to know each other, all that kind of stuff. And so what I did was I had a Discord server that was sort of dormant. So I had to scrub it all out, clean it all out, get rid of stuff that was in there from when it was for my blog, when I was writing. And now it's opened to my members. So if you become a member, I put a note in the community tab for all members to contact me to get an invitation to the server. It's open only to members. So if you are interested in becoming a member, you can it's open to all tier levels too for membership. All right, so it's just a nice way for you guys to interact and become better friends than you already are. And it's a nice way for me to talk with you guys about different story ideas. So this one, I was having fun in the Discord making this thumbnail, and my members were laughing because I really think the thumbnail for this video is actually on point. Like, for sale house in perfect condition. Because if you know this story, you know that this dude over here, Austin, I look like I have deadness in my eyes. Like, you know how you like look at someone and it looks like there's nothing in there? That's how I imagine Austin's soul. Just dead. Okay? Anyways, he sold this guy, David, a house last year. And it was one of the houses that he actually had to flip and fix for Joy before they got married. Because remember, like, he had this, like, you gotta flip 10 houses kind of thing before he was allowed to officially court Joyanna to show that he was serious about his commitment to Joy, which is actually weird. Or maybe his dad did that. I can't remember. Why didn't they have something like that for Ben? Ben, you need to get a job. Get a job for 5 minutes, and then you can court Jessa. Anyways, so he fixed up this house. Now, here's the thing. He sold this house to David Floyd in 2018. And when he sold the house, he told David that he had done a bunch of stuff on the house. And he said that when he fixed the house up, he actually had taken out the proper permits for everything before he did any of the work. So he took out permits for, the septic and for plumbing and anything that would have required a permit by the city or the county of Washington in Arkansas. He says that he received a permit for. And so he did this outline where he showed David everything that was wrong, like everything that he fixed, and told him like if anything was icky, and then they did a purchase agreement and he bought the house. So here's what happened. David sued him because David alleges that within like months or even weeks of actually having everything moving in, he noticed that his backyard smelled like duty. Like a foul odor was coming off of his yard, and his dogs always stunk really bad. Can you imagine plunking down a bunch of cash for a house and then you find out it's full of turds? That's what happened to David. So, where is it? Oops. You guys. There it is. Okay. So he filed this lawsuit actually in October of 2019, and then Austin responded. And it was funny because Austin's response was like, David said like, Austin is a house flipper and a contractor, and Austin's response was like, I deny that claim. He denied that he was a house flipper, even though he was literally on the show being a house flipper. Now, I did check the records in the state of Arkansas. Austin does not have a contracting license at all. No, he's not a licensed contractor. His father, Terry, was a licensed contractor, but his contracting license has been expired. So he filed this motion that he wants to have a refund because in order to repair the septic, it would cost like a ton of money. And David says that you're either going to repair the septic system or I want you to take this house back because I don't want it. So once Austin filed in November, nothing really happened. And then just last week, David and his attorneys filed this in court, which says that they are requesting the court for a motion for partial summary judgment. And the statement was as follows. The separate plaintiff, David Floyd, purchased the property, blah, blah, blah. During the process of selling the home, defendant executed seller's property disclosure. Statement relied on the plaintiff, which recited that all the work was done with necessary permits and approvals in compliance with building zones and codes and zoning. Shortly after moving to the home, the plaintiffs learned that the septic system installed on the property had malfunctioned. The plaintiffs further learned that the defendant had failed to receive a permit from the Washington County Health Department regarding the septic system in violation of Washington County ordinance. And then the false representation in defendant's property disclosure statement amount to fraud or construction fraud in which plaintiffs are entitled to rescission of the purchase of the property. It is on the plaintiff's claim for fraud and construction fraud that plaintiffs now move for judgment as a matter of law pursuant to Rule 56 of the Arkansas Rules of Civil Procedure. There are no genuine issues of material facts which with respect to these claims, and plaintiffs are therefore entitled to a summary judgment. So basically they're saying like Austin can't argue anything because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. And because of that, they're just asking them to award sort of a judgment because he failed to do what was required by law to get this house septic system put into. And then he fraudulently sold the house under the pretense that he had all the necessary permits in order to do so. So he's not asking even for a new septic system. He wants them to rescind the purchase, and he says that he wants Austin to take Austin to take the house back. And he's asking the court to award that. So this is the brief that they filed in support of that, and it's actually rather detailed. And it says that in the summer of 2018, the separate plaintiff, David, purchased the home and the property at blah, blah, blah. Property is in question is located in an unincorporated Washington County, Arkansas. During the process of selling the home, Mr. Floyd, the defendant, executed a seller's property disclosure settlement statement in which the defendant certified that all the work on the home was done with necessary permits and approval in compliance with building codes and zoning regulations. Now, this is where being a licensed contractor would be important because you would know the zoning and you would know the building codes and the zoning regulations. But because he doesn't have that license and he's fixing things willy-nilly, he apparently didn't know the laws. And Austin's argument was that there isn't a actual ordinance that you have to have a permit in this part of Arkansas for a septic. That was literally his response. So this statement was untrue as the defendants had failed to obtain a certificate or permit from the Washington County Health Department regarding the septic systems on the property in violation of Section 17.2 and Section 1199 of the Washington County Code of Ordinances. And it's really not that hard to figure out if someone actually got a permit, because you can go to the county and find out if someone pulled a permit and if they had the permit, because all of that stuff is public record. So nonetheless, Mr. Floyd, relying upon the defendant's representation that he had obtained all necessary permits, purchased the property in the summer of 2018. Therefore, Mr. Floyd married the separate plaintiff, Terry Floyd, in August. Almost immediately after moving into the home, the plaintiffs began noticing that their yard was constantly saturated and that it emitted a strong odor of human waste. Oh God, that's got to be so bad. I feel so bad for them. It became immediately apparent that the septic system was the source of the problem. Accordingly, the plaintiffs paid for a local septic installer certified with the Arkansas Department of Health to conduct percolation tests and design individual sewage disposal systems to inspect the property and learned that the land was unsuitable for a septic system that was installed and that the septic system was malfunctioning. So basically, Austin went cheap and used a cheaper route rather than, and he didn't do the correct, like they have to test the soil because you can have different kinds of soil. There's like clay or sand, right? And sand is different than clay. Like we live on clay, and clay gets really, like, we get lots of floods because it's just, there's nothing to absorb the water. And if you build on sand, it's drier, right? So he didn't have it, he didn't know it was what he was building into, and so he just dropped any septic system in there because he didn't go through the county. Anyways, based on everything else, it says a summary judgment is granted when it is clear that there are no genuine issues of material fact to be litigated, and the moving party is entitled to a judgment as a matter of law. So they're saying like he can't argue that he didn't do these things because he didn't do these things. All proof must be viewed in the light most favorable to the non-moving party, and any doubts must be resolved against the moving party. Once a moving party has established a prima facie entitlement of summary judgment, the opposing party must meet proof with proof and demonstrate the existence of the material issue of facts. I.d. ultimately the summary judgment procedure is no longer considered a drastic remedy, but rather one of the tools in a trial court's efficiency arsenal designed to prevent unnecessary trials when the record shows that there is no genuine issue of fact to be litigated. So basically they're saying, well, you don't have an argument. You cannot provide proof that you had this permit. So therefore we win. Prior to discussing the plaintiff's specific causes of action, it is important to discuss the Washington County ordinances. So they also point out the ordinances here, and they say, which is applicable to both causes under discussion. On July 11th, 2013, the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas passed ordinance number 2003-37 entitled, an ordinance requiring the seller of any residential or business structure or land upon which a residential or business structure is to be constructed or placed to be required to procure a certificate from Washington County Health Department that the septic system is approved to the land and has been tested and approved for installation of a septic system. So he was supposed to get this, Austin was supposed to provide this to the seller before he sold it. It's like an ordinance by the city, and the buyer is saying, no, I never got this. This ordinance was later codified to the Washington County Ordinance of 1199. As the incredibly descriptive title suggests, the ordinance mandates that no residential structure which requires a septic system with or without an existing system in place shall be sold until the seller procures a certificate or permit from the Washington County Health Department. So he not only didn't get a permit, but then they're saying that he also didn't provide them a certificate stating that the septic system was the right system for the property and that it met all ordinances and that it was like functioning. Which is, again, Austin isn't a licensed real estate agent either. So again, he was the one that did the sales contract. He sold it, and he not only did he fix it, but he also sold it. And so he doesn't have a real estate license, and he doesn't have a contractor's license. So he's lacking the skills in order to do any of this, which you're seeing now what happens when you don't have the right qualifications to do something, what can happen, right? So they're basically saying because of what he did, he fraudulently sold this property. In order to establish fraud, a plaintiff must prove that the defendant made a false representation of material fact, that the defendant knew that the representation to be false, or that there was insufficient evidence upon which to make such representations. So anyways, they're saying that he did construction fraud because he didn't do what he needed to do. And then they have all these all this more stuff, but basically they show this, which is it's the seller's contract, which he clearly says on there, it's on line 17. Was the work done with the necessary permits and approvals in compliance with the building codes and zoning regulations? And he checked that it was. So he says Austin provides him this checklist and says that he got all of the permits for zoning and for building codes. And so the buyer said that he relied on this for making that decision. So this was his first exhibit, and then he also provided an affidavit from the guy at the sewer or at the environmental place that came and looked at the property, and he examined the septic system. And he says that, you know, the attached statement and septic system site evaluation is true and accurate. So then he provides an assessment of it, and he basically says that 2 areas behind the house were tested for lateral line suitability, and it were found visible or unsuitable because of high clay content. So remember what I said about clay? It's really leaky. It floods. So he would have needed to install a more expensive septic system that would cost around $20,000, they said. And then he provided the ordinances which are required by law in order to put the septic system in. And then an affidavit then from David Floyd that says he purchased the property. And in the purchase of the property, I was provided with and relied upon Austin Forsyth's seller property disclosure statement in deciding to purchase the property. He signed that. He then shows the purchase agreement. There you go. So Austin will because it's a motion, now Austin will have a chance to respond to the court and say, hey, I agree or I disagree. But if he can't argue any of those things and he can't prove that he had the permits, then I don't know, dude, you're going to be SOL. I mean, I know where we live in Minnesota, septic systems require a certification before you buy because it's a big deal if your septic system is broken. That's a huge expense for a buyer, and it's one of the main things you have to have inspected before you sell a property, because if you can't poop, what are you gonna do, right? So I don't know what's gonna happen here. It's interesting because Austin and Joy, they just got a dog. They just were gifted a new house by Jim Bob. So they were deeded one of Jim Bob's properties for $10. He has been busy fixing up that property. If past experience and work is any indication of future work, if I were Joy, I would be making sure that the yard isn't stinky, the pipes aren't leaking, and I would be hoping that he used all of the right materials and followed zoning ordinances. Now, if you watch Counting On, you know that this family loves to we're gonna throw up a deck today because yay. You know, and they've never taken out permits. They start cutting into walls and they're like, we're just gonna knock this wall out right now. Like Jessa and Ben wanted a deck, and so they literally just cut a patio door in. Who wants to bet they actually had a permit for doing that? They do everything on the cheap. It's the Duggars. So Jim Bob made him sell this property and flip it to get married, and now this poopy property, the homeowner wants his money back. And I can't say I blame him. And it sounds like this homeowner has a good lawyer on his hands. So, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that Austin is posing as a contractor so that he could get the younger Duggar? Or do you think that he's just lazy and he didn't know? Can we blame this on ignorance? Can he just say, well, this is just how we do things out here? Do you agree with the buyer that he should get his money back? Even though a buyer is under, there's a lot of questions for me, but the fact of the matter is, if he didn't follow the ordinances and he didn't follow the law and he didn't get any of those certifications, then it's really on Austin. It can't be the buyer's fault in this case. But the buyer maybe didn't, I don't know. How do you get into a situation like this if you're the buyer? And you do not have most real estate agents should know this kind of stuff. And I don't want to blame that it's an Arkansas thing, because I know I have lots of people, lots of subscribers in Arkansas that are amazing, intelligent, great people. So I'm not going to blame it on them being in Arkansas. I'm going to blame it on Austin being a shyster and a grifter. Do you think that Austin's being a shyster and a grifter? Tell me in the comments. I will be back in a little while. I'm debating on doing something on Wendy Williams. Are any of you guys interested in her? She's been making a lot of really icky comments lately, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I just don't know what I'm going to do with that. Also, if you want to become a member, consider doing that below, and then make sure you send me a message, and then I can get you into my Discord server. To all of my members, make sure you send me an email, and I will get you into the Discord server. I hope you guys have a great night. I'll be back in a little while. Bye, guys.